My name is Barbara Cockrill. I'm the Director of Faculty Development at HMS, and I'm going to talk to you just in this little 5-minute slot about some work we've done on optimizing preparation for the flipped classroom using efficiency metrics. And I really want to give a shout out to Henrique Bechet, who's the first person up here, who's really done most of this work, but unfortunately she can't be here today. So what we have done at HMS in 2015, we launched it, completely blew up our curriculum and started over again. And in med school, for those of you who are unfamiliar, our students are spending the first 14 months in the classroom, and that's all been done in a flipped classroom pedagogy. And then they spend the next 3 years, 2, 3, and 4 on the wards in the hospital. So I'm focusing on what they do in the first 14 months. And we use the flipped classroom pedagogy that we call case-based collaborative learning. So I know that I don't need to talk to this group about exactly what a flipped classroom is, but there's 2 things that you need to know about the way we've done it that is important to this project. Number one, like most or many, students get their prep work the night before, and then they also, before they come into class, have to do a quiz. And that's a multiple choice quiz that we track. The second point that is different than a lot is that our students come in and they work in groups of 4. So they are assigned to groups of 4. They come in, and in that group of 4, they work through the prep work from the night before, and then they also apply it to new problems. So something came from that we learned is, number one, we were all experienced faculty who had been preparing and teaching in our Harvard medical students for quite a few years. And we had been assigning the same amount of prep that we'd always been assigning. But what we found was that our students, actually in these groups of 4, they wanted to be prepared for themselves, but there was also a lot of peer pressure. Because part of the contract here is you work with this group of 4 and you learn from each other. And there's time in the classroom to do that. So if you show up unprepared, it's not just on you, but it ruins the morning for the rest of the group. So what we learned was our students were doing the prep, and it was way too much. So we'd been assigning what we thought was appropriate amount of prep, but our problem was that this was taking forever, it was too much, it was too hard, and so what we wanted to try to do is figure out how do we most efficiently assign that prep, because the students are now doing it, to optimize learning in the classroom. So we used a simple approach, a learner-centered approach, where we asked the students about their prep, and we were asking them not, is this too long, but is this efficient and effective preparation for your learning? And then we compared it to the scores that they did on their readiness assessment quizzes ahead of time. And what we were trying to work toward is what we are calling an efficiency graph. So on this axis, and I'm going to show you some data next, is the level of difficulty as perceived by the learner. And then on this axis is the successful learning, like how well they scored on that quiz. So we want things to be in this area, like it was effective learning and they did well on the quiz, or maybe it was really hard, but they still did well on the quiz. We wanted to avoid this down here where things were just super hard and it wasn't effective. So this helped one of the things is many of our courses are run by a number of different content experts. So you'll have 90 sessions in a class, and 5 sessions are the genetics content expert, the other 5 are the biochemistry content expert. So it was really important for us to try to identify that expert blind spot so that faculty weren't giving things that, we know all how this goes. It's so easy, why is this so hard for the student? But we forget how difficult it can be for the novice learner. So here I'm going to show you how our data, and this is primarily for faculty development and a determination of best practices. So remember, difficulty here and quiz score here. This is a summary of one course, which has 10 different disciplines within that course. Each one of these arrows tells you where they ended up for all of their content. What we did was we picked apart each one of those disciplines. So it's not surprising to us that anatomy is up here. It's hard. It's typically the hardest one. Any med students in the room, it's very hard. But we picked it apart and looked at each of the 90 sessions and identified some that were up here, some that were here, some that were here, some that were here. What we were then planning to do is take this back to the faculty, have them look at it, try to understand it, and we're going to look at this group up here to identify best practices. So what allows these sessions to be very effective learning. And by the way, it wasn't just the length of time. Some of these sessions up here in the best area were the parts that took the students the longest. So it wasn't just that they were working, it was effective learning material. And then the things that show up down here are the ones that we want to target and figure out what it is about those what can we change to make it more effective. So our first future goals in progress, we're scaling up. We're evaluating alignment between faculty and students. Faculty can't tell. They think it's easy and the students think it's hard, and so we're not very good at identifying that. We're engaging faculty in conversations about desirable level of difficulties across all courses, so hitting it in that good area up there. And then our next steps will be to identify best practices and improve instructional design, figuring out why they're up in that top left area, and then to automate this data collection so all faculty have access to it, so you can go in and look and see where your session falls in. So thank you to HILT. I think I'm a little over time, but what HILT did for us is helped fund really the statistics and people helping with all the computer programming to put this up, and without them, we couldn't have done it. So thank you very much.